We are in hurricane season. It's June 2nd. I'm Chief Meteorologist Alan Seals. This is the satellite loop, the history of Tropical Storm Cristobal. It is in the southern Gulf of Mexico, and where you see the colors, that's the satellite enhanced to show you the taller clouds, the higher clouds, which typically tells you how strong the system is. Also notice here's a different color scale on the clouds, and depending upon where you look, you will see different scales. It doesn't always mean the storm is strengthening, it just means you're looking at different colors. But if you look at the most generic satellite, it's pretty obvious to tell the counterclockwise circulation far south in the Gulf of Mexico. This is actually an infrared satellite, the one you see most commonly. Although during the daytime you see a visible satellite, so different views of the same storm. Sometimes they make it seem as though the storm is really big. It's not that big. It is that big way down in the southern Gulf of Mexico. So as of late afternoon, a minimal tropical storm, Cristobal, winds of 40 miles an hour, basically sitting in place. It's not moving very much, and that is going to be a problem. Look at the forecast, and what you're seeing is a lot of overlapping, and you're seeing a bunch of circles simply telling you the center of the storm is going to meander for the next 2 days, the next 48 hours. And if you could read the wind speeds, 40 miles an hour, 45 miles an hour, 35 miles an hour, it's going to fluctuate a little bit. It may even move inland, weaken a bit, then move back out into the Gulf of Mexico. But basically, it's not going to move much. Deadly flooding rains. Guatemala, El Salvador, the Mexico coast, rainfall measured 1 to 2 feet in the next couple of days. So that's the immediate concern. If you're on the northern Gulf Coast, the concern is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It looks like right now that this will likely get picked up by steering winds traveling to the north, and in the forecast cone, you'll notice Louisiana is right in the middle. But the forecast cone is just for the center of the storm. So don't take this to mean it's going to travel exactly in the middle. In a perfect forecast, it would, but what it means is people from Houston to Baton Rouge to New Orleans to Mobile have to watch this very carefully. Now, the end of this forecast cone is pretty much midday Sunday. So it is possible midday Sunday the storm could have made landfall into Louisiana, or it could still be in the Gulf of Mexico, projected as a tropical storm. And keep in mind, the forecast track is hard enough, but projecting that wind, that's even more difficult. So we all have to keep up with the possibilities of this storm. So let's talk about possibilities. Right now it looks like landfall likely somewhere along the northern or northwestern Gulf of Mexico. Whether it's a hurricane or a tropical storm, typically the highest wind is right around the center of the storm. Typically, but not always. So that's a big reason why people want to know, where is it going to make landfall? To the right of the path, as it hits land, that's where you get your greatest storm surge. In other words, that strong wind coming in from the ocean, the Gulf of Mexico, literally pushes water uphill to create what could be deadly storm surge to the right of the path. Now also, as storms come out of the Gulf and hit the northern Gulf Coast, the northeastern portion of that storm and the eastern portion, that's where you typically will get tornadoes. If it's a strong enough storm, you won't necessarily get them for a weak tropical storm, but a strong tropical storm or hurricane, tornadoes, that is a serious threat. And then there are these things called feeder bands, and those feeder bands literally feed moisture into the center of the storm. And if you get caught underneath a feeder band, which could stay in place if the storm is moving slowly, or even if it goes inland, you could still be under that same feeder band. You get an increased risk of storm surge, an increased risk inland of tornadoes, also at the coast, that risk of tornadoes, and also just a stronger wind. So these are the most difficult parts of landfall to predict. If you are in between feeder bands at landfall, you may say, what storm? Because it's a huge difference between being under a feeder band and being outside of a feeder band. These are things that are yet to be determined as we move toward the weekend. What we know is this hurricane season has had a rapid start. Already we're down to the third named storm. Regardless of forecast, no one can tell you how far down this list we are going to go, but you've got to be prepared for every storm, for the possibility, the worst case scenario, that this will approach where you live. It doesn't matter where you live, you've got to have a plan. I'm Chief Meteorologist Alan Seals.